So that makes this a successful teaching. I don't know, by the way, have you had a chance to consider
Did you?
well, can't keep you up.
Okay, I was the chair of the budget board for 3 years. This is what I learned about the budget environment at the university. This is the talk. The university, all the administrators, they come to all these meetings. We believe in shared governance and transparency, right? That's the talk. This is the walk. Willful obstructionism, deceit, and incompetence across the board. That's what I ran into everywhere, all the time. This was, I'll quit cursing all the time. This was BS. This was the truth. I understand that the administrators are meeting next to us. We have a new president with a new attitude. And I hope, hope to heaven that she can introduce change. But she is going to have a tough time because this is a lot to overcome. I was the budget board chair for 3 years. I didn't make a dent in any of this nonsense. None of it. It was as bad the day that I started as budget board chair as it was when I finished. In fact, it was worse. Because, we got this whole new budget process started. It was a whole dog and pony show last year. We got done with it, and in May, Julio Leon and Mike Farley decided entirely for themselves what the budget should be, made all kinds of changes without consulting anybody, jacked up tuition on students without consulting them. There were all sorts of numbers and figures that have been agreed on throughout the year. Julio Leon in the last meeting with faculty said the first time he looked at those in the fall of 2010, he had decided that he was going to change them all. But he decided he wasn't going to tell anybody that because it would just, he said, that might have been a misjudgment on his part. But he just kept it to himself. So he decided that he was going to entirely give the budget a makeover, change all the numbers, and all the discussions that we had, open, frank discussions about structuring a budget in a shared environment, all a waste of time. So, the reality of budgeting at the university, in my 3 years of experience, is this. If it has changed as a result of having a new president, I'll be so thrilled, but, we'll see. We'll have to see, it'll take a little while before we actually see results, but it's going to be tough, because there's a lot of players, and we have an environment here, a long and deep legacy of playing by these rules in our budgeting environment. Questions? Yeah.
So do you think the focus is in individuals who are largely gone and being replaced, or is it institutionalized? I mean, because above the dean level, right, everyone's a new player, right? CFO is going to be new, the provost new, the president's new. Those seem to be the most important people when it comes to budget. Now, I'm sure deans have some, but does this get down to the faculty level where we don't have a lot of turnover? Is it entrenched at that level, do you think, or is it
my
culture?
It's a culture that I don't know how deeply entrenched it is. I mean, because the system, presumably, and I heard this over and over again, was closely engaged in overseeing our budget environment the whole time I was on the budget board, and doing, engaged in oversight, looking at our accounting, visiting the campus, auditing, and everything seemed hunky-dory to the system. So, again, the system seemed to think that, are talking about transparency is just fine. We were losing money all over the place. It's coming to light now. There were students who were not paying their tuition. We weren't keeping track of that. Our controller was not calculating various sorts of tuition correctly. So wildly misestimating projected revenues. And we're going to be hearing about this pretty soon for next fall. And this is going to influence, always, every time there's a glimmer of a chance that the tuition increases for students might not have to be as bad as we fear they're going to be, and maybe faculty might get a stinking raise. Now revenue is going to be worse than we expected it to be, all again because of this, and this. And so, and to her credit, Leslie DeMar is trying to clean this up with the consultant she's got on campus who's filling the role of VPFA. But, they're trying to deal with a heck of a lot of this nonsense at the university, in the administration building and across the campus, but also at the system level. They've allowed a lot of sloppiness, and I don't know how much ability a president and a VPFA have to completely change a culture. Or it's certainly not something they're going to be able to change overnight. I'd like to be more optimistic, but...
It gets back to what Jason was just saying about buckets. They'll say where we're going to find the money, but then if you actually suggest where you might find the money, then buckets come up. Like there's money that you can get for some things and not others. I happen to teach in the psychology building. Work there too. Miserable building. Should have been gone years ago. It's something like, fourth system-wide now for, or maybe it's the new classroom building that would partially replace it as fourth system-wide. And so we see other things go up. In fact, Jason, what you were saying, I had a conversation with our dean a few years ago when the new dorms went up, which was sort of my great, if this is a teaching, right, I want to see if I can share for you the epiphany I had a few years ago. The great education about buckets. I said something, I don't think I was talking about raises at the time. I think I was actually talking about the building. I said, Roy, why are they building new dorms when we have a building from the 1960s that's an absolute disgrace and I don't have a window, among other problems. And that's even before the renovation of the building. And what he said to me is that you can build new dorms by bonding the revenue that will come from people staying there. But you can't build new office space the same way. Which is buckets, right? And so we go to where the money is, yet that commitment for those dorms, something that, at least to my knowledge, faculty were never consulted about, is going to affect our budget probably for the next 30 years as they get paid for out of the revenue generated by the people who stayed there.
Well, even better.
Yeah.
With the dorms, you can create what Joanne Ballard did, was this totally inflated view.
The projections, yeah.
Yeah, like we're going to have students staying in the dorm, but more than that. Every summer, we're going to have some X number of $1 million of revenue because people are going to, the Shriners conventions are all going to come to Pueblo or some crazy thing like that, which is baloney.
Right, and thank you for taking this to the next level, because that's why the bucket argument is ridiculous, because if we can't pay the bonds that built the dorms, the money's going to come from everywhere else, even if it's not in the same bucket.
See, where there's a will, there's a way. You can engage in all kinds of creative finance if you want to make a certain thing. If you want to build a shrine or a monument to Joe Garcia so he can be elected lieutenant governor of Colorado, it can be done. Yes. The educational buildings, which happen to be the mission of the university, well, that's not going to get Joe elected. You got to build monuments to Joe, football stadiums, dorms that can be seen from the freeway, so that we can all cheer for Joe and get him elected. He's got to be in the president's cabinet before he's dead. Come on, Get your priorities straight, Jonathan, for Christ's sake, all right? And then psychology buildings and offices and students, let them suck asbestos. Screw that, right? You know, worry about the important things.
Holders,
Joe Garcia. Repeat after me. Joe Garcia. That's what's important. And, you know, and shift the money around any way you want, okay? Just as long as Joe Garcia gets what he wants out of this institution, okay? And that's certainly how, what guided the financial picture here for a long time. Farley and Ballard created what they called their pool of finances. All the revenue that came, and you know about this, Ida, right? We talked about this and talked about this. They took money that came to the university for dedicated reasons. All kinds of money that came here for specific purposes, and they diverted it into their big financial swimming pool. And then they ladled this money out wherever they saw fit, independent of what that money was supposed to be spent on, so that pet projects could be financed.
Isn't that illegal?
I was going to say that.
That is a textbook definition of misappropriation of funds. And when I mentioned that in meetings, I got booed and hissed. Of course, I'm sitting around a table with Joe Garcia and Russ Meyer and all the deans, and they're all wearing their suits. And, oh, how dare you say things like that? Oh, how terrible, you know. And because, you know, it's just not a popular thing to say when, of course, we are, you know, nobody wants to hear the truth, right? What they want to hear is, good job. We're all engaged in transparency and shared governance. Good, yeah, everybody wants to have their backs packed.
Sure.
Padded. They don't want to hear that they're a bunch of obstructionists, deceitful, incompetent scumbags. And you tell people that at meetings often enough, and there's consequences.
Can we, before we have to switch to the next subject, let's switch to one of my favorite words, which is shared governance. I guess that's two words, isn't it? But it's a really awesome word. And it's a word that if it actually happens, it gives you the feeling that you can actually affect the course of the university. Well, we as faculty, the ones who are, and it comes out of the fact that the mission of the university is education, and faculty are the people who are doing the educating. So we go forward, we work with administration together, we suggest certain aspects that affect education and affect policy. Now, the opposite of shared governance is what you were just describing. And we've had that for the longest time. I can't remember. It was one of the AUP things I did a few years ago when I first heard the term shared governance. And I literally remember thinking like, wow, we can do that? I mean, it's like a great idea, and it's a great piece of language. But if you go around and you say, I believe in shared governance, like certain ex-temporary presidents of this university actually did when they started here, and then you have the exact opposite, I actually think that's worse than never saying the word at all. That's like, you know, it's like taking candy from a baby. Here, do you want this little lollipop? No lollipop for you. If I never knew there was a lollipop, I wouldn't be so frustrated to be lollipopless.
Actually, it's more accurate. We're all wanting some lollipops. And we see a group that has the lollipops and are finding new ways to give new people lollipops while we don't get them.
But budgetary shared governance is the most important kind of shared governance, because obviously if you don't have budgetary, you know, everything costs money, and if you don't have budgetary shared governance, you don't have real shared governance. That room over there is where the budget process is going down. And, you know, some people were kind of upset that we're holding this meeting now, and it's a little ironic to be doing it literally next door where that's going.
What's going on over there is a dog and pony show. Nothing really important is taking place over there. I really don't think so. This is where important stuff is taking place.
I know, and I got that, but let me ask you this. I know last year was a dog and pony show of the worst kind. Is the verdict in yet? Can we?
I think what's important about what's going on here is the discovery process that President DeMar is engaged in, and the active process of dialogue that we'll be having with President DeMar. What President DeMar does with the dunderhead administrators who are in that room is practically meaningless.
All right, okay, but we're not certain that the entire budget process is once again a dog and pony show.
I hope President DeMar learns valuable things from that, but I have a feeling that we need to partner with the president and
Take
Add
shared governance
dimensions
for
to it.
ourselves. I see what you mean. All right, let's do